I'd like to introduce Julie from Australia, who takes LDN for Hashimoto's disease. Thank you for joining me, Julie.
Thank you, and it's nice to talk to you.
So could you tell us when you first started to experience symptoms?
When I first started to experience symptoms, I was diagnosed in 2007, but when I look back, I would say quite a few years before 2007, different symptoms I can now look back on and say I'm sure they all were adding up one by one until I actually got to the diagnosis in 2007 for Hashimoto.
Uh-huh. It's
So
a bit like
I've had
getting,
it for 5.5. Sorry?
it's like having pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, isn't it? Once you know, you can put all those
Yes,
pieces together.
it is, and it's like a light bulb moment, and you sort of go, aha, that's what that was, and that's what that was.
So what were these symptoms that you were experiencing?
The symptoms that I was experiencing, oh goodness, I was tired all the time. I was losing my hair. I had dry skin. I was off food. I couldn't eat very well, pretty much living on one meal a day, and I couldn't understand why. Lots of aches and pains throughout the body. I started to lose strength. I was losing my muscle. Brain fog. Brain fog was getting more and more regular, to the point where I was having it almost every day. Goodness. Frequent urination. Couldn't stop like going to the toilet. Odd days of constipation. I had vertigo. If I turned around quickly, I would get off balance. I had dry eyes and blurred vision. I lost some of my eyebrows. I constantly had cold hands and feet. If I was in air conditioning, my hands would literally go numb. That's how sensitive to the cold I'd become. I was also sensitive to heat. I couldn't sit in the sun. So, you know, that makes it hard living in Queensland. But actually, for the thyroid, I had a lot of tightness in the throat, and I had a lot of neck pain. My head began to feel too heavy for my neck to hold it up. It was really bizarre. And to turn my head left or right, I was very limited to how far I could actually turn my head, and so that was becoming a problem for me with driving. And so like I had to slowly, you know, only really drive when it was really necessary. And so that you know that started to impact with my job and you know, other parts of life, you know, like your social life and stuff like that. There's lots of symptoms. I had this awful internal tremor that used to make me feel really weak. I felt like I had air hunger where I just wasn't getting enough oxygen into my body. And so I would try to breathe deeper because I thought if I breathed deeper, I would get more oxygen, but it just didn't work. You just felt like you couldn't get enough air into your body. I had low blood pressure all the time. My body temperature was always low. I had an ultrasound done and I had 2 nodules on my thyroid, and the left side of my thyroid had actually shrunk. So lots of symptoms initially. And but overall, the fatigue was the killer, you know.
Yeah.
Really awful fatigue.
What medication were you given?
What medication? Initially, I didn't go on medication. I refused it. I thought I could get myself better, and And so that is what I tried to do for 12 months. I went to a naturopath and tried to do it the natural way. But 12 months later, I had to go on medication, so I chose to go on natural desiccated thyroid, simply because it's more natural. Like the hormones in natural desiccated thyroid are more what we have in our own thyroid. So that was my reasoning for that choice. And it did do a little bit of good. It balanced out my hormones, but symptoms didn't go away. It didn't matter how much doctors tweaked the dosage in my medication. And I saw a lot of doctors. I've seen 10 doctors and one endocrinologist in 5 years. So I've really done the rounds in trying to get well. And nothing could get rid of the symptoms. It was really debilitating. So I did get some relief from the desiccated thyroid, but only small relief. The whole problem with the system is when they test you, they're not actually testing what hormones actually get into the cells. So even though we're taking this thyroid medication, yes, it's entering the body, but the tests aren't telling us if it's actually entering the cells, you know? And so that's why I can totally understand why my symptoms persisted. From what I've read and researched, I've obviously got, you know, something going on with my cells that's not letting these hormones into my cells. And so my journey continues.
So how did you hear about LDN?
LDN. My doctor prescribes LDN, and about 18 months ago he said to me, you should give LDN a try. And I'd never heard of it. And so he said, go home and research it, come back to me and see what you think. He said, I'm having really, really good results with patients who have MS. So I went home and I did my research, and to me the thought of going on another medication was just not me. I don't like medication, and for me to say yes to a medication, I've really got to suss it out. I'm someone who doesn't even take headache medication. I don't touch paracetamol. That's the type of health nut that I am. I will always try to turn more towards natural remedies before I go to the doctor for help. And so through my research and what I'd read, and I had listened to videos by Dr. Bahari, and I was really quite impressed. And then through my kids, like my kids were starting to say, you know, oh, Mum, what if we get ill? And that started to concern me. And so I jumped on the net, and I actually began to join Facebook groups. And it was actually through a Facebook group that one lady actually mentioned at one particular time that she was taking LDN. So I jumped straight onto her, and I was like, oh, what are you suffering with, and how has it helped you? And from what she told me, and this was an incredibly ill lady, and I thought, goodness, if that can help you, just imagine what it can do for me. And so I really began to get excited. And I spoke about it with my husband, and I said, oh, what do you think? You know, should I give it a go? And he was like, absolutely. So I went off to my doctor, and I was like, okay, I'm happy to give this a go. And the same lady who I'd spoken to on a Facebook group, she actually gave me the name of another Facebook group, which is Beating Thyroid Disease with LDN. And it was through the lady who runs that group who really encouraged me to go for it. And because she herself has or had Hashimoto and was totally off thyroid medication. So I was really excited when I heard that. And so I went off to my doctor and I said, I would really like to give this a go. I'm hearing some really good things. So he was like, fantastic. He wrote my script, 4.5 milligrams of LDN. And I looked at it and I was like, And he goes, what's wrong? And I said, you can't put me straight up on 4.5 milligrams of LDN. And he's like, why not? He goes, that's what I put all my patients on. And I said, well, I don't want to tell you your job because, you've been so good to me. I said, but from what I've read and from what I'm being told, Hashimoto's patients need to start at 1.5 milligrams because we can swing hypothyroid very quickly. And he was like, oh, of course. And so he wrote me a new script for 1.5 milligrams.
Mm-hmm.
And very quickly I started to reduce thyroid medication, which really surprised me. And the 6-month protocol, I will have to admit, was a really, really rough ride. Other things crept up while I was doing that protocol. I had a reverse T3 issue, which meant that the thyroid hormones that I were taking just simply weren't getting into my cells. Reverse T3 blocks that. And so that took me 2 months to clear while I was on the protocol. And then I got this really dreadful virus, which lasted for about 3 or 4 weeks. And that knocked me off my feet. And then I got Candida. And I've heard that Candida stops LDN from working. So I also had to treat that during the protocol. Mm-hmm. So for me to actually feel well, since I started taking LDN, it has taken me some time because of what I've had to deal with along the way. But I almost gave up because I felt so bad, and I had to, go to the Facebook groups for support, and the support is absolutely fantastic out there. And, they kept me going, and I'm just so glad that I did, because the improvements that I have got from taking LDN is just terrific. Like, I'm totally a new person. I was so debilitated before that I just didn't want to live anymore. I was just so tired of being tired. Where now I love life, and I wake up and I'm cheerful every day. Where I used to be sad all the time. The change that LDN has made to me it's just absolutely phenomenal. I just did not think, as bad as I was feeling, that anything could make me feel good anymore. Mm-hmm. And it has. It really has. Everything that people say about LDN, how good it is, it truly is. People, I really wish when I spoke to people, and I do get really excited about it because I really want people to understand just how good it is. And you can see the doubt in their face. And I know that doubt because I had that same doubt when I was looking into it. And so, I just want to say to everyone, there is nothing to lose. Give it a shot, because you will be so surprised. I was mm-hmm. really surprised. It's just really good. I can't say enough good things about it. It is. It's fabulous. I mean, where my health is today, if I compare myself to when I was diagnosed, and I did slip further and further into a really debilitating fatigue where I was sleeping maybe 14 and 16 hours a day. And I just didn't want to be here. I just didn't want to live my life like this because that just wasn't living. And to be where I am today, doing the things that I am today, I would say I've got 50% of my life back in this short time frame. So, you know, as time goes on, I know I will get better and better. And plus I've done a genetic test. I know there are other things wrong with me that I need to correct. So I know I'm going to improve so much more. And it's just fantastic. I just can't wait for it. Bring it on, I say. You know? It's hard to understand that someone can get so excited over medication, but it is good stuff.
So if you had to rate your quality of life on a score of 1 to 10, 10 being the best before LDN, what would it have been?
Now or before?
Before.
My health before, my life. When I was diagnosed, I would say it had slipped to a 5, but as the years progressed from diagnosis 5 years ago, I would say up to a year ago, my life, I would rate it very low, around a 2. I just didn't want to be here. I didn't want to be here. I absolutely hated life. I hated who I had become. I was miserable all the time. And I could see the pain in my family's face, that they didn't like to see me the way that I was. And that's really hard to live with. Yeah.
And what would you say it is now?
My life now is up there around the 7. It's good. It's really, really good.
Well, that's excellent.
I don't like to look back on the older days. I don't like to think of my health how it was 18 months ago. I'd rather not think that I had ever gotten to such a low level, because I'm quite a happy person and a positive person, and I like to control everything. And when you get ill, you feel out of control, and to have a disease that's got control over you, oh my goodness, it's really difficult to live with. When you want to do something and you just physically cannot do it, it really is mentally draining, and the depression is awful, absolutely awful. Hashimoto's disease is a really, really terrible disease. You know, there are so many symptoms and so many ailments that you get from it. And it stands to reason, because the thyroid affects every single cell in the body. And so, you know, one person to the next, which I've found out through Facebook groups, we all suffer like different symptoms. But I mean, depending on where you are at with the disease, you know, some people are quite okay, you know, and are working and are functioning, but other people are just so debilitated and just were like me, like I was 18 months ago. You know, they just don't think that they can carry on another day. And so I really love being on the groups, because I like to get out there and I like to encourage people, because I know where I was, and I know people helped me in such a big way. And Deb, who runs that group, Beating Thyroid Disease with LDN, she's an absolute angel. You know, she gives so much time to the group. She's absolutely such a beautiful person, you know. She saved my life, she did.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your experience with us. I really do appreciate it.
Well, thank you for talking.